Episode 1 of Pantheon starts with our focus on Maddie, a girl at school who's bullied by her peers. She's an outsider, and part of that stems from her becoming a recluse. 2 years back, her father passed away, and since then, it's caused an enormous amount of stress in her life. It's a tough pill for Maddie to swallow, given the pair had a good relationship. The same can't be said for Maddie and her mother, Ellen. They're estranged and both have very different interests. That night, Maddie's computer blinks on with a strange message from an unknown sender. They send emojis to one another until Maddie asks exactly who this person is. They simply send a ghost emoji back. It's a strange and enticing mystery that's starting to build. At school the next day, things change. There's drama between Samara and the other girls who are bullying her. They begin turning on one another after their phones are hacked, which also means Maddie is in the clear from bullying. It would appear the culprit is this mysterious emoji sender. Naturally, Maddie's mother Ellen shows up and immediately interferes when she sees her daughter contacting someone on her computer. Ellen demands to know who she's talking to. When Emo, Maddie's name for the mysterious sender, drops a text full of emojis from a phone Ellen recognizes, she gets spooked and hurries out the room. Maddie naturally follows and listens as Ellen phones someone demanding to know why David, her husband, has been sending messages to her. But is this really true? Or is there more to this story? Well, the focus shifts across to a kid called Caspian before we get our answers. He's a genius and disinterested in school, answering equations and formula with ease. He also finds himself interested in conspiracy theories too. Funnily enough, he gets talking to Maddie online, who screenshots the emoji chat and sends it over, asking for help. Caspian dives into its origins and appears to hit a breakthrough, but we'll have to wait and see. Another new character we meet this episode is Chandra. He heads out for a business meeting, where he tells the other men in attendance that the singularity is near. What he's referencing here is uploaded intelligence, the idea of placing one's consciousness into the computer. Chandra is just an engineer. A brilliant engineer, but still just an engineer all the same. He believes UIs will revolutionize the industry, with humanity able to kick back and relax while these digital consciousnesses do all of the work. Unfortunately, he seems to know too much, and after the meeting, he's snatched up in a van and taken away. News of this spreads across the net, and specifically to Caspian, who realizes how strange this is. Now it turns out Caspian has an estranged relationship with his father, Carrie. Carrie sees Caspian's brilliance firsthand that night. He challenges his son to solving an algorithmic problem round the dinner table. The thing is, the disagreement and fallout between Caspian's parents, not to mention the estranged bonds between them, all appear to be staged. But why? To what end? As for Maddie, the emoji sender is back and claims to be her friend. The sender also promises to bring back her father. Maddie grows spooked and hurries out of class. Unfortunately, Samara follows and believes Maddie is responsible for hacking her phone. Thankfully, Ellen shows up and interferes, stopping Samara and promising to hurt her if she comes near Maddie. Sighing, Ellen admits there's something she's been keeping from Maddie. Episode 2 of Pantheon starts with Ellen revealing a bombshell to Maddie. Ellen knows what happened to David, and through this chapter, we're about to find out. The big tech company at play here is Logarithms, and they've come a long way since their CEO, Stephen Holstrom, passed. His words and soul live on through the work they do, with David and Ellen part of this project. All is well until David ends up sick. With the UI project hanging by a thread, David volunteers for a dangerous and unpredictable project. Essentially, this is a suicidal procedure where the brain is digitally captured while the neural connections are still firing. In other words, they need to scan a living brain. Unfortunately, the tissue matter would be peeled away layer by a laser that records everything down to the molecular level. Ellen is not happy about David signing up for this despite him having 4 weeks left to live. If it works, David perceives that they'll have all the time they want together. The thing is, it'll never actually be him, just his digital imprint. Back then, Maddie suspected something was up, but Ellen kept it secret from her daughter, given it wasn't guaranteed that the procedure would even work. And unfortunately, the experiment failed and David was lost. At least that's what she was told. Now that we're in the present, Ellen believes that Peter and Logarithms have lied and parts of David's brain matter survived. Ellen sees this emoji chat hack as some sort of trick, especially as David hasn't reached out for years. Ellen has outright rejected the idea of her husband returning, having taken a long time to process his death. Ellen shatters the thin shreds of hope Maddie had been clinging to and promises to make those responsible pay. Caspian and Maddie continue to connect through their computers, with the former revealing that there was a big DDoS attack at Logarithms. It took them down for 20 seconds, and it's big news all over the forums. While talking, though, Maddie mentions uploaded intelligence. She's immediately stopped by another chat message coming up with someone called Angry Angel. They implore her not to talk to Caspian anymore and to meet at the Lone Pine Mall food court at 3 p.m. Only I can help you now. They ominously sign off with Caspian's contacts, and going off book by discussing UIs reaches logarithms, and they contemplate how to handle this going forward. For now, it's decided that they continue as planned, with Caspian's parents keeping up appearances. Over at Maddie's house, while Maddie is out at the mall meeting her mysterious contact, Peter heads over and reveals more of the truth to Ellen. It turns out logarithms partition off the part of David's brain that contained his skill. A while back, those at the company realized the algorithm wasn't working as efficiently as they had hoped. It turns out problem-solving isn't just logic and reason, it's also dependent on emotion. After adding more of David's emotions into the UI, it opened the floodgates of unpredictability, specifically in him trying to contact Maddie. Ellen demands that all of this uploaded consciousness be deleted, otherwise she's going to the press. The trouble is, David is exceeding his programming and even sending messages to those inside logarithms, reading, "I want my freedom. I want my family," repeated constantly. Over at the mall, Maddie meets her contact, Cody. It turns out his wife, Lori Lowell, contacted her despite being dead for 4 years. Cody admits that she's not dead, and neither is her father. Much like David's experiment, Lori also underwent the same thing when she fell into a coma. Logarithms did the procedure, but it was a bait and switch. They told Cody it was unsuccessful, but in reality, they used her consciousness to play the stocks, given she was a promising hedge fund broker in charge of her own trading team before being comatose. This DDoS attack was actually crafted by Lori, who tried to break her father out of their digital prison. The thing is, Ellen wanting logarithms to delete everything off the server would completely destroy the consciousness of her father, who appears to be very much functional. She's given a bracelet by Cody, which should help her in the next part of this mission. Maddie decides to tag along with Ellen, determined to fulfill her mission over at logarithms. Ellen meets with Pope, the man in charge. He refuses to delete anything to do with David Kim. P is not happy, but as they all argue, Maddie uses the bracelet to hack into the system. Everything goes down completely. As a result, logarithms are losing millions of dollars by the second, so Maddie makes a deal. They give everything back when they release David Kim to her. Pete believes he can get in, but only within 6 minutes. With time of the essence and the company bleeding money, Pope hands over David Kim and concedes. With 2 UIs now out on the open internet, it certainly looks set to cause chaos. As the episode closes out, David Kim is free over the open internet and rings Maddie, asking if she's ready to complete their adventure. Reign of Winter. Episode 3 of Pantheon starts with Chanda stuck in an infinite loop of work. He doesn't remember any of this, of course, and he also receives a call from his mother too, which incentivizes him to work harder. He manages to write 80 pages in 12 seconds, but in reality it's been 12 days for him. That shitty businessman we saw before is actually the head of India's largest telecom empire, and his name is Ajit. He's clearly stolen this tech and smiles evilly as he sees his plan come together. However, midway through his workday, a strange entity continues slips through the walls and haunts Chanda. However, this apparition seems to be more of the Casper variety, acting like a friendly ghost. It grabs Chanda and turns him toward the monitor, where footage of Chanda's brain surgery is shown off in all its gnarly glory. These spirits happen to be those poor souls from the slums who had similar experiments done to them. Meanwhile, Maddie and David end up playing Reign of Winter together. The game has come a long way and now has full VR integration. Although Maddie has embraced the idea of her father returning, Ellen is far less accepting of David, and she's not even sure if he really exists. David ends up causing a strange shockwave inside the game, destroying another party of gamers. This also gets across to logarithms too, but as they can't track the source right now, the program isn't finished. Apparently, they decide to send it across to the lab for analysis. Maddie decides to parent trap David and Ellen, wanting them to talk through their problems. And that, of course, does not work. When Maddie tries to set up a dinner date for the pair, Ellen rejects the idea. It doesn't help that she's involved with Gabe. While visiting him that night, a jealous David starts messing about with the electrics to ruin their date. Ellen finally embraces the idea of talking to David, and she does so by connecting with him in VR. She tells him to let her move on and not interfere with her new life. David admits that he loves her and Maddie, and this love is what he is. It's also the reason he's still moving. I can't be your wife, but we can keep talking. And maybe we can both keep moving. Ellen concedes. It's a really mature and smart way to round out these two characters, and of course Maddie is upset that they're not getting back together after all. Caspian continues to look into uploaded intelligence UI, believing that Hallstrom and logarithms have been at this since 2001. His mom Renee tries to dissuade him away, but she's clearly rattled. Now it turns out Renee and Hallstrom were actually sexually involved with one another in the past. Caspian is incredibly smart, as we know, and he writes a script to search for redacted locations on Google Earth, including cache images. Cross-referencing this with Logarithm's donations to Ocean Fund, it leads him on the right path. In fact, he notices images of the construction of their base. Despite the engineers changing the pictures on Caspian's computer, it's not enough to dissuade him. However, the big moment that Carrie and Renee have been planning for takes place. Carrie buys a hammer and prepares to smash it into Renee's arm, but he can't do it. Instead, she does it herself, and when Caspian shows, he beats Carrie up to a pulp. Carrie leaves the house and drives up the road, heading for the debrief. The inflection point is on schedule, but it's clear that it's affecting him, as Carrie admits to his boss, Pope, that he's going to miss the kid. While he pulls over by the side of the road and cries, Caspian takes a chance with Hannah and kisses her in the parking lot. As for Ajit, he takes to the stage at a conference to discuss his work, with Pope rejecting an offer to join together. The final scene cuts us back to Chanda one more time as he's shown himself going about his work day stuck in this digital hell. But with a newfound knowledge of what's happening, what does this mean for the future? This episode opens with Prasad arriving at his luxurious tower block home via helicopter. The billionaire's dwellings are fitted with a swanky rooftop swimming pool, lavish, high-tech decor, and an army of employees. Chanda infiltrates the home, hacking all this state-of-the-art technology to wage his own cyber war. He sends all the staff members home, makes the shower unbelievably hot for Prasad, and then causes a petrol leak. Prasad's son then becomes trapped in the rooftop pool, whilst an explosion separates his other family members. In a horrifying setup, Chanda shows the gruesome footage of his brutal operation on the home's television screens and then speaks with his former boss over the phone. Prasad begs for mercy, but Chanda only wants to watch as his nemesis loses everything. The fire in the tower block quickly spreads, and there are to be no survivors from this attack. Pope and Waxman see the disaster on the news and ponder Prasad's back alley uploads. Pope states that Prasad both succeeded and failed with these advances, implying that he is aware of Chanda's vengeful attack. Caspian's narrative continues to develop further also as he shops with his mother Renee after the father's calculated assault. He wants his mom to be protected from further attacks and also financially secure. He gives her with a hefty check, which he states was legitimately earned, and buys her a weapon. Meanwhile, Carrie returns to his employer's secret base for a debriefing. Carrie worries that Renee is completely unstable now, although the bosses seem to think the entire project is on the brink of falling apart anyway. Carrie warns them that Caspian is very close to unraveling the whole mystery. Things are about to go south. In Maddie's world, a teen searches for answers, asking her father David to show her his electronic world. David may be able to play in video games and chat over the phone freely, but his electronic entity is still trapped within the coding. This manifests in the shape of his office, much like Chanda's, where he spends his days. Maddie is shocked by this unfortunate revelation, but is then thrown out of the system, Lori, the rogue UI, being the perpetrator, who then erratically attacks David. Lori blames David for her current situation, believing he purposefully planted a flaw in her coding. She takes David hostage, but he continues to plead his innocence. David says he can fix Lori, who is disintegrating at a rapid speed. Realizing that David cannot leave this office facade, she tries to train him to escape his cage. Emotions are the key, and once he unlocks this power, David is able to break free from this mental torture once and for all. Maddie worries what Lori will do to her dad and contacts Caspian, asking for his help. Caspian admits that he never really knew who Lori was. Maddie tells Caspian that they need to find her, but that they cannot trust her. Maddie explains how Caspian is being watched, and he starts to link everything together. Logarithms, Norway, and uploaded intelligence. He confides in his girlfriend Hannah, telling her that his life doesn't quite feel real anymore. Later, he takes apart his computer and phone, finding a logarithms chip inside both pieces of technology. The teen is rightfully paranoid and rushes to tell his mom of his findings. Cody turns up at Maddie's house, and Ellen is on hand to pepper spray the intruder. After Maddie calms down both of the warring adults, Cody explains that Lori is missing and that she hasn't been acting herself lately. Flashbacks reveal how Lori's mind became uploaded intelligence and how they were able to communicate with each other once she escaped. It's another tale of love, somehow finding a way through all these electrical walls back to reality, a theme that solidifies the viewer's engagement. In the final scenes, Cody is about to shut down Lori's servers when they receive a vital message. David wants to meet with Maddie. She puts on a haptic vest and enters the virtual world. Maddie hugs her father for the first time in years. David has become three-dimensional once more. He explains how Lori is decaying at an alarming rate, although he is suffering from a similar virus himself. Caspian drives around searching for his mother and finds her talking in private with Hannah. The two argue and Hannah confesses that Caspian is questioning his own reality now. Renee is angry that Hannah didn't tell her this sooner and demands that she gets more answers out of him. Caspian realizes what is going on in this crucial moment. Friends and family members are just pawns working towards some higher goal. Who knows what profound effect this realization will have on the teenager? Episode 5 of Pantheon Season 1 is where everything starts to come apart at the seams. David's time is limited and he blinks out. It seems he's been found and Maddie is forced to get out before it's too late. Someone has taken the servers offline and of course that stems back to logarithms. They've just taken control of Eterna. However, they don't have control of Carrie or Caspian. The latter shows up to see Hannah, demanding to know her connection with Renee. After seeing them at the mall last episode, Caspian is a man possessed and eventually gets the truth from her. Hannah reveals that her real name is Rachel, an actor that was recruited by Candle Street, which is a shell company name. She was given $1 million to keep her mouth shut and play up the role of Caspian's partner in this social experiment. It turns out Rachel's mother has cancer and she's done this to pay for her treatment. Caspian agrees to stay quiet about her part in this, but only if she does exactly what he says. Hannah, Rachel, plays her part well, pretending that her meeting with Caspian was just a run-of-the-mill meet with nothing untoward occurring. Caspian listens to the call with Renee the entire time, realizing with despair that his mother is in deep. He also learns that Carrie has gone rogue, shocked that his father isn't the sadistic abuser he was led to believe. The next day, Renee suggests to Caspian that they head up the coast and get away to Santa Barbara. This is, of course, all a ruse, but Caspian plays along all the same. On the way, Caspian notices Renee has taken her gun in case they find Carrie. So naturally, when Renee stops at the gas station, Caspian drops all pretenses and takes control of the car, leaving her high and dry. Meanwhile, Maddie communicates with David as the pair reconvene in the digital world and go over what they've discovered thus far. It seems logarithms have new tracking algorithms in place, and they're covering their tracks too, with no upload files in their main HQ depicting the surgery or the awful experiments they're conducting. Maddie immediately thinks outside the box though, bringing up a remote location, namely that of Norway, where logarithms are operating. David uses his technical know-how to hack into Pope's satellite phone, downloading an echolocation in order to get a scope of the facility. It's basically a massive server point, but David decides to drain Pope's battery completely remotely to find out where the charge point is. Using the phone's vibration function, David moves it across the desk to a nearby laptop, which inevitably allows Lori access to download the project files. This seems to do the trick, giving both Lori and David access to the mainframe of the laptop and the files within. As they begin digging into the files, they realize there's another inside the computer, Vinod Chandra. With the project files being downloaded, Pope is informed of what's going on, but it seems he knows. In fact, he's in collusion with Waxman, who's watching the hack from his computer. The pair decide to work together and trace the origin point back to Maddie's place. They assemble a team and move on their location. Their cover is blown, or is it? Waxman's team show up at the complete wrong location, confirming David's ruse as Pope finally understands his phone has been hacked. While this is going on, David finds the project files on Caspian, who could well solve the flaws in the system given his brilliance. As for Caspian, he returns home to find Carrie there wanting to talk. He admits that Caspian was created from Steven's genome, and he is basically Steven's perfect clone, the one designed to take over the man's legacy. Holstrom never uploaded because he realized the system hadn't been perfected yet. When Caspian leaves, he finds Renee there waiting. She keeps up her charade, but Carrie breaks it completely, admitting that he's told their son everything. Renee shoots Carrie, but before he can bleed out, Caspian takes off with him in the car. In episode 6, after witnessing his fake mother shoot his fake father, Caspian drives off with Carrie bleeding to death on the back seat. Carrie stresses that Caspian must avoid any and all hospitals or else logarithms will surely find them. It would seem they cannot trust a single soul. Carrie explains that through all of Caspian's life, he believed in the mission and in Holstrom's vision, but when it came to leaving Caspian and implementing the final inflection point, he had a change of heart. Carrie connected with his fake son on a deeper level and lost all interest in the program as time went on. Unfortunately, Carrie passes out before saying anything more on the matter. Meanwhile, Lori begins to glitch more regularly and loses some of her short-term memory. With time running out, they decide to research Chanda and bring Caspian into the mix. They debate the serious ramifications of bringing both of these controversial individuals on board, pitching more and more drastic possibilities instead. David and Lori mention another alternative, merging 2 or possibly 3 uploaded minds to create an entirely new consciousness. Before this alternative can be given any real analysis, Caspian interrupts, contacting Maddie via her school friend Justine. Caspian has nowhere else to turn and reaches out to Maddie as these two storylines finally converge. Kobe offers to take Carrie to the hospital anonymously, while Caspian heads home with Ellen and Maddie. Here he enters the VR world and talks with David and Lori for the first time face-to-face. Hallstrom cloned himself to give the planet a second chance at fixing the UI flaw, but Caspian is completely overwhelmed by all this pressure. He eventually comes around to the idea and begins to analyze the data. He realizes that the defect is caused by a memory problem. He suggests rotating the memories instead of deleting them. Before he can elaborate, Chanda arrives unceremoniously upon the scene. Chanda, the third known UI, seems to have shifted into villain territory and you must be Caspian. He plans on making his own world for all the UIs and lives with the other zombie glitches at a decidedly ominous-looking lair. When he arrives at David's location, he puts on a show, pretending to be aggressive and violent. In private, he tells David and Lori this is all an act for the Pentagon, but as time moves on, his true intentions come to the forefront. Living in solitary confinement for all that time has slowly driven Chanda crazy. He defends his murderous actions, stating that he had anger problems in the real world, and now he has no way of releasing his built-up tension in the cyber world. Chanda replays them the footage of his horrific death and then updates them on Prasev's diabolical scheme, in which he used people from the slums to experiment upon. Once Chanda is informed of the UI's deadly defect, his real emotions start to show. Chanda panics and lets slip that he has passed on the UI technology to all the top minds in the world. He has informed global institutes from the likes of NASA to the Kremlin to the Middle East of this discovery, unwittingly starting an arms race in the process. Chanda says that we are gods, but David counteracts this by adding that we are gods that will soon die. Seeing that an unfortunate end to the entire human race is on the cards, Caspian drives off, telling Maddie that he's going to try and enjoy the rest of his short life before humanity destroys itself. Chanda has really opened up Pandora's box with this revelation, now that all the major institutes in the world have the same unstoppable power in their grasp. The episode opens with the introduction of a new character. Arkady Koslov is a top Russian hacker who showcases his deadly talents by assassinating some world leaders from the comfort of his extravagant home. This new UI is an unstoppable force of nature, but even he doesn't know about the flaw in his coding. His government agree that Arkady is replaceable, and yet he has just aided in an explosive political maneuver. While world leaders are killed off and stock markets crash, Maddie and Ellen panic shop for the coming apocalypse. Lori is planning on going public and aims to reveal the many secrets of the UI program to the world. David tries his best to calm his fellow UIs as the fears of annihilation bring out the worst in these geniuses. Chanda argues with Lori over her scheme, and David suggests locating the other UIs to help solve the defect first. Lori gives them a limited amount of time to solve this problem before she goes public. Ellen brings in Waxman to help them track down the other UIs in the world. She warns him that war is coming and he must choose a side. He passes them a memory stick containing the tracking program, but David refuses to talk with his old friend when the opportunity arises. This information allows them to track all the UIs in the world. Koslov is spotted in Russia and Caspian in Israel. The Chinese UIs seem to have traveled to Palo Alto, though, and are heading right for them. What follows is a clutched battle between the good guys and the bad UIs. They try to warn their enemy of the ensuing glitch that will be their ultimate downfall, but they won't listen. Lori pauses the fight and informs the others that she is going public. They cannot stop her now. Chanda tries to reprimand his ally, but David intercepts. These powerful beings are at odds with one another, and it looks like things aren't going to end well for anyone involved. Meanwhile, Caspian wanders the streets and joins a church, looking for a much simpler life. He tries to teach others followers about math and has a light bulb moment during this specific lesson. His pupils record his ramblings and he is quick to delete the footage, but logarithms find him anyway. Pope turns up at the church and asks for his help. It's an intriguing scene. Pope understands that his company are perceived to be the bad guys, but he earnestly wants Caspian to guide him towards a brighter future. He offers Caspian free rein to do what he pleases. The teen says that Pope will regret this, but he doesn't seem fazed. Coney speaks to Lori for what he believes could be the last time. She is midway through recording her confession and pauses her speech for her lover. He tells her that he's going to Logarithm's base in Norway to retrieve her files. Lori admits that it won't be her that he is recovering, that the old Lori he reboots won't even be in love with him. Connie doesn't care, he has to try something, but she wants him to stick around and hear what she has to say. While Lori delivers her speech, Chanda gives Maddie a call. He warns her that he's going to destroy Lori and then David for their deceit. We then see how he is hacked into some military computers and is sending a missile right towards Lori's servers. Lori narrates over the top of this sequence, stating that UIs are humans, ones gifted with incredible power. They could do great things with this new technology and is worth sharing with the world instead of just a select few. She says she believes in humanity and signs off just as her servers are destroyed. The series finale, The Gods Will Not Be Slain, begins with the introduction of a new character, a brave soul named Josephine, who is headed for Mars. The astronaut is unfairly cut from this mission when she falls ill, but she is offered a new role as America's first cybernaut instead. Josephine represents the good that UIs can achieve, but there are those who wish to use this power for evil and their own gains. Pantheon concludes its first season with an almighty battle between good and evil in an explosive finale. Maddie watches online as the world falls apart around her. Cyber attacks are growing with the onset of a third world war. Caspian calls Maddie out of the blue to update her on his current circumstances. He explains that he'll be heading to Norway to work alongside Pope. Caspian is done running, is going to shut logarithms down and erase all their research. They had already provided him with $30 million, which he has gifted to Maddie for all her help. But Maddie just wants to save her father. Caspian plans to rid the world of UIs, which in turn would kill David too. These two individuals that were once friends now seem poles apart. The gang throws Lori a symbolic burial, but Cody is still angry after Chanda's attack. He wants to release Lori's confession to the world like she had originally planned. Maddie thinks it could cause further chaos though. He goes public anyway, appearing on the news later that day. Unfortunately, Cody isn't taken seriously and very few people believe him without any hard evidence to back it up. Maddie and David discuss Cody's bold move whilst they play each other at chess. David admits that he only has 2 years left, maybe 10 to 15 if he compromises his own world and returns to text speech like before. He worries he won't get to see his daughter grow up. Meanwhile, Chanda is up to his old tricks, stealing the world's nuclear codes. He heads straight for David's cyber abode to make his final play. Chanda threatens David he has 10 minutes to hand himself over or a missile will be launched at Sacramento, killing his entire family and many others in the process. Chanda is aware that David has a copy of Lori's message and fears he's going to go public. David reflects that it may have been a bad idea to keep a backup copy, but he just wants to be seen to leave behind some form of legacy. Maddie begs her father to fight back. Caspian is shown around Logarithm's base and then starts to bark out orders. He fires his parents, I bet that felt good, and tells Pope to dump his shares, break up the company, and sell it for parts. The others are shocked by Caspian's demands, but Pope follows them blindly. David heads into the video game world to fight Chanda with the clock ticking. The UI gods battle, making up their own rules as they go along. Chanda senses defeat and launches the missile, managing to freeze David's character within the game, but Maddie promptly reawakens him. David then tricks Chanda and sends the missile crashing into the sea, saving thousands of lives. David decides to sacrifice himself and uploads Lori's file to every device and every screen across the entire globe. This act uses an unimaginable amount of power, and David's file is subsequently erased from the cyber world. With Lori's message going global, the companies start to panic and pull the plug on all their servers containing these UIs. Chanda and his UI cronies head for the satellites as their digital world evaporates around them. People protest outside Logarithm's headquarters after discovering this ungodly deceit. Waxman admits that it is all true, to which Pope orders for him to be arrested. Caspian and Pope debate the fallout of David's scheme. Caspian believes that this is the end of it all, but Pope thinks it's only just the beginning. UIs will survive this and then thrive. He confesses that Holstrom only wanted one UI to be immortal in the end, one to control all the others. He offers Caspian the opportunity to decide which UI has their flaw removed. Caspian's first option is David, but Maddie reveals that he is now dead after releasing Lori's message. Pope states that they have a copy of his file and Caspian gets to work on curing the flaw. The series ends with Ellen returning from the protests to find her daughter sobbing. They are heartbroken at David's death and hug one another. The power cuts out and a backup generator kicks in. Their house seems to be the only one in the neighborhood to be running on full power, and their neighbors head over in the dark, looking for comfort or maybe answers. Meanwhile, Caspian types away at his computer, hopefully uploading David's consciousness once again to gift him with the power of immortality.